hosting week 2 of Hawk Talk, the Monday show, Monday best. All right. We got Nick, Brendan, Nazir, and Michael joining us today. And another familiar face will be joining us next week. Jalen NB will be back on the air. He's been in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, these past 2 weeks, enjoying himself an early spring vacation, I assume. I wish I was in Florida right now, but we'll get there when we get there eventually. Once I have the money, I'm being kind of stingy right now, saving for vacation. Real quick intro question, guys, just so we're still warming up to each other. It's only week 2, just trying to get familiar, build some chemistry. Don't talk about your favorite college sports team or favorite college period. Leave Whitewater out of this. If you're from Wisconsin, leave Wisconsin out of this. Brendan, you're from Tennessee, so leave like the Memphis Tigers, UT Knoxville, Vanderbilt. Try and leave them out. No homer picks here, so I'm going to avoid Wisconsin, Marquette, UWM, Green Bay like the plague. What is the college? It can be any college you have a really weird or like loose connection to. And I'll start. I'm rocking a Taylor University crew neck sweatshirt today. Some middle of nowhere in Indiana college, private Christian school. The town population of Upland, where it resides, is about 800 people. And when you're driving in, I kid you not, it's, driving cornfield. Oh, there's a 3,000 student campus, cornfield. My sister actually went there, got a bachelor's degree from Taylor University. My brother-in-law also went there, still works there. That's just a weird connection I have. You guys ever watch, like highlight clips of the Silent Night basketball game?
Where it's completely dead silent.
Where it's dead silent till the home team scores 10 points and then all the students rush the court and it's just a free-for-all for about 10 minutes.
Pretty epic.
That is Taylor University, for those of you who do not know. It's the locations, like if you were to take Fort Wayne and Indianapolis on a map and cut it directly in half, that's where Taylor is from. Wow. So it's like 5 hours from here. Michael, let's go to you.
For me, it would actually have to be Baylor University. I remember that was one of the top schools I was considering when I was a child. That's a team I tend to root for. But I just kind of grew away from them, and I just kind of took them out of consideration just because they're too expensive. They're a private school. Yeah. I really like how they give a basketball program, and I like how they had the green and gold, kind of like the Packers. But, yeah, that's it for me.
God, I miss watching Sean Oakman play football. That dude was a beast. He was quite literally a tank. Like that picture of him standing at midfield for the coin toss of what I think it was like the Cotton Bowl Classic or something like that. Just scared, like literally terrifying. Like that guy could have been so good. Just off-field issues kind of got in the way of his career. He went to the CFL for a little bit. Was pretty good there. I think he's still there if I'm not mistaken.
So. He is.
Yes. So Sean Oakman, quick shout out to him. Nazir.
I've had like a really weird connection with Drake University my entire
the Bulldogs
since 8th grade because I'm a huge track guy. So I went to the Drake relays once, and I went to go just visit the school and all for a weekend, and it was really cool. It was a private school. It's kind of like a better Whitewater. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's in Des Moines, but it's like if Whitewater was mixed with Janesville. And that's kind of what it is. But
not the subtle ouch.
The school is nice though. The people there are cool. But I was really a big fan of the Drake Relays, and their basketball team has been kind of turning up the past few years. But from what I've noticed, their football team's never been that good. But
yeah, they're. Did they not recently make the tournament?
I think they made it. They were in the round of 68 2 years back. I'm trying to remember.
Okay.
They played.
They made it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago. Were they one of the last 4 in games?
Yeah.
That's where I remember watching them then.
Yeah, it was crazy.
There's middle of Iowa, right?
Yeah, it's in the middle of Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa.
Des Moines. Okay, yeah. So it's not well reached out of civilization.
Right.
It's not like cornfield, big school cornfield.
Driving there, it's all cornfield.
Yeah, it's flat corn, nothing else going on. Brendan, let's go to you.
So this university that I selected, relatively newer in my scale of fandom, I'm going to go with Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina.
I know exactly why.
Well, it's pretty obvious why. In my bracket last year, just want to say that I did win this radio station's bracket challenge this past season. Just a little plug.
He did. I ran that bracket challenge, and Brendan killed it. Did you have Alabama winning in that bracket?
I had Alabama winning it all, but I did have UConn in the championship. I had Miami in the Final Four. It was a pretty good year.
It was a pretty wicked bracket, if you ask me.
But I've had a personal vendetta against Virginia ever since they lost to UMBC, and I did a lot of research on Furman before the game, and I just said, something tells me Furman's going to upset Virginia in this game. And JP Pegues, when he hit that 3, to take the lead, 2 seconds to go.
was a great
Forever
game.
in my heart, Furman.
It's a great game.
Furman University. I will always support.
And funny enough, I was actually working a camera, one of the baseline cameras for a NCAA Division III tournament game. That day it was women's basketball. I forgot who was playing, but it was a neutral site, so we weren't playing in that game. And I was watching that on my phone as I'm playing camera. Sorry, Jim Mead, if you're listening, but I just kind of had it up on my thigh as I'm following the game, and I look, I'm like, oh, he did what?
I know, that inbounds pass
A la
was
Al Michaels, like,
so,
yeah.
That pass that the point guard made was so bad.
Wild.
And just JP Begay's, no doubt about it. Down by 2. Nah, we're going for the win.
Nick, let's go to you.
So I don't have anything to go too in depth in on, but Lewis University. I don't know if you guys are familiar in Romeoville, Illinois.
Oh, I know. Yep, Division II.
Division two. Love the Flyers. Kind of recently got into this university because of a dear friend of mine. Shout out Dominic Bolano. He came out and visited me when I was in Hawaii back in 2020. Actually, right before COVID hit. He actually made it off the island like the day before they locked everything down.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, he brought me some merch and everything because he was attending there at the time, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So I've definitely been a fan of Lewis University.
You know, if my little brother happens to be listening out there, he plays at the Rock Valley College baseball team, JUCO Division II, and they had a fall scrimmage against Lewis University, and he wasn't even supposed. He was telling me about this story. We were actually on our way to go to a Packer game, and a couple days before he pitched against them, and he was telling me, he was like, yeah, I wasn't even supposed to travel to this game, but the coach is like, hey, dude, like, we need you here.
Yeah.
You know, just get an inning or two. Goes out one inning, gets shelled.
Oh,
Gives up like 5 or something like that. And I was like, dude, you just went from pitching at junior college, you know, acing against these guys, to playing Division II studs who've probably been there for 4+ years, and they rocked you a little bit. Big whoop. I don't think it's not the end of the world for you, buddy, but
And that really shows the gap. You know what I mean?
exactly. There's a
insane.
huge gap. Like, and even on top of that too, I forget who I was talking to about. I was talking to my one of my roommates, and he actually played in high school against Quinn Priester when he was
wow.
still at. I want to say it was McHenry.
McHenry,
Yeah.
it was McHenry.
Yep, he was playing for McHenry, and he said watching that guy, he's like, it just looks
Yep.
different.
Different.
It just there's no other way to describe it. It just looks different coming out of dude's hand. So yeah, there's a little shout out to Quinn Priester as well. We're shouting out some real Random athletes here today.
Right?
Only on Hawk Talk.
Only on Hawk Talk, the only place you're going to find this Random Athlete Talk. Dudes naming dudes, shout out BDGE. But we're going to move on here to our first segment of the day, Obscure Sports. We're bringing it back, this time only 2 days a week, alternating Monday, Wednesday this week, Tuesday, Thursday next week. Continue like that throughout the semester. And today we're going to talk about the PBA. We're right in the thick of the PBA major season with the Illinois Classic just wrapping up this past Saturday night. And that was a very entertaining matchup to watch because AJ Johnson, you know, he went 2-1 overall in the PBA Illinois Classic, falling to Marshall Kent 214 to 180. But watching those other matchups, Brendan, I mean, AJ Johnson, you know, he struggled out the start against Jake Peters after he took down EJ Tackett, and after Peters took down Sean Lavery, I should say, and he kind of, you know, he figured it out. He just seemed to figure it out. It was the ball change, I want to say. It was balling down to the Venom Shock.
When he balled down to the Venom Shock and just absolutely packed it, I had a great feeling. I'm a big AJ Johnson guy. He had a great run this weekend. It was a very good, very entertaining for it not being a major. It was a very, very, very well done, very competitive matches in the Illinois Classic this past weekend. And shout out Marshall Kent winning his 3rd title, only his 2nd individual.
In correction, it was Johnson who took down Peters in match 2, and then Sean Lavery Spar, who Lavery Spar just did not look like he was all there this week.
Wasn't his day.
Just was not his day. Let's gear this a little bit here because this is going to be the shortest segment of the show. Let's gear a little away from the Illinois Classic now. I mean, that was quite the entertaining matchup, but let's just talk about some of the youth presence that we're seeing in the PBA. And for those of you who don't know, if you're on a men's collegiate bowling team, you still can participate in the PBA as long as you get a commissioner's exemption. If you were to enter as an amateur or as a pro, you automatically throw away your eligibility to participate in college. Then you are just on the pro tour. But looking back at especially the Players' Championship, I mean, Ryan Barnes out of Wichita State, this guy's, 20 years old, 21 years old. This is a guy I'm like 1 degree of separation from this dude. Like, some of the guys on our team just know who Ryan Barnes is. And I think the fact that we got to watch this guy, he beat up on Chris Vi, and then in match number 2, beat up on another young guy, Nate Stubler, Rookie of the Year this year out of St. Ambrose University. I mean, let's just talk about the youth presence in sports like these. You know, let's lean to you guys in the fishbowl here. Is younger presence, especially of like guys our age, you know, college-age athletes, is this good for professional sports?
I think so. It's good in every other sport. I don't see why it wouldn't be in bowling, you know. So I think the youth, our generation specifically, we have so much talent, like at every level, in every sport. I believe you see people in our age at the NBA getting signed $100 million just for being so like flashy with their moves and stuff like that, making these crazy shots. And I'm sure they do the same thing in bowling as well, just making all those strikes and everything like that. So,
Michael, let's go to you.
I would also agree. It definitely feels like whenever you think about bowling, it is definitely more of an old man's game. But especially now, again, as he was talking about with the flashy like styles that people are coming up with like the younger generation, it'll be pretty cool to see how they can compare and just see if they can do even better than like the older people were, and see a new generation, right?
And even going to the U.S. Open here, too, we had a 34th place finish from Bobby Habetler out of St. Xavier University by way of Indiana Tech. And Landon Jordan, who's not even in college bowling yet, finished 15th coming out of Sycamore,
That kid's a
Illinois.
stud.
Which, yes, him and Griffin, dude, those guys are both amazing talents.
Up and comers.
I think the youth movement is huge too, because not only is it kind of striving away from, you know, like, because there's the PBA 50 tour, and that's starting to take some more prominence, especially with the guys of this last golden age, like Barnes, Bone, DJ Archer, you know, other guys like that. You know, shout out DJ Archer. But going into the PBA 50 tour, and it's opening the door for younger guys, and even still some of the older younger guys like Belmo, Sean Rash, Kyle Troop especially now. Kyle Troop just won the U.S. Open. That was a huge win, dethroning EJ Tackett. EJ Tackett's another young guy too. AJ Johnson hasn't even touched 30 yet. Like, and now you got these younger guys coming in too. And I mean, Landon's what, 15, 16?
Yeah.
Just competed at the U.S. Open, one of the toughest tournaments on the planet.
By far the most difficult.
And he finished 15th. And in the youth movement too, and you got to think about it this way too, because of how prominent social media is, and you see all these people posting shots and, you know, like different layouts and things like that on Instagram and on TikTok, it's only growing the sport. It's only growing the sport.
Totally.
Speaking of a fully grown sport, last ticket to Cancun, San Francisco. The 49ers fell to Kansas City in yesterday's Super Bowl matchup in overtime by a score of 25-22. And there were a lot of historical happenings yesterday. This is the first Super Bowl ever held in Las Vegas. Kansas City just won their second straight championship and their third in 5 years. We're going to talk about that in just a second. The longest field goal ever hit in Super Bowl history by Jake Moody was about as long of a run as Aaron Rodgers' run with the Jets this season, because Harrison Butker then made the next longest field goal in Super Bowl history. And this is only the second Super Bowl to ever go into overtime. And there's rumors coming out now, too, and some possibly verified quotes that the 49ers players did not know what the rules in playoff overtime were.
it's embarrassing.
Let's start with that. Just what does that tell you about this organization and how it's run?
Well, I wouldn't even have announced that as a player. I think that's just like a smear to your entire organization. Your whole entire organization looks completely just not professional after that, because you don't, if you have to go into this big game knowing all the rules, knowing everything possible, all the outcomes possible, and you're telling me that you didn't know the overtime rules, where you're playing against one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best ever. It's embarrassing in my opinion. I don't think this should never happen.
And especially coming from such a stalwart defense, too. I mean, the 49ers defense has been considered one of the league's best year in and year out. And, I mean, talk about that injury, too, to Dre Greenlaw. I mean, just how impactful, anyone can chime in here on this, just how impactful was that Dre Greenlaw injury? And not only do you think that this could have, helped to determine that the Chiefs were going to win the Super Bowl, but do you think this is going to be something that the Niners need to address long term? Because that's another Achilles.
So, I mean, watching that game, the second half, the Chiefs completely readjusted to Greenlaw's injury and completely just targeted the backups. The whole time there was just consistent rub routes to Kelsey, these short little quick slants that, Greenlaw would be able to cover, but their backups unfortunately couldn't. And Andy Reid, because he's just a master, just play caller, offensive guru, noticed it, and he and Matt Nagy put together quite a great scheme in the second half to ultimately run away with the game.
And Oren Burks, the backup, former Green Bay Packer, by the way.
It wasn't bad.
He didn't play that bad. A, in Green Bay. B, in San Francisco all year this year. He hasn't been
playing pretty good.
He's been a very viable option off the bench for that defense in the second team.
He was very disciplined yesterday.
But the problem is, like you mentioned, Brendan, when you're going up against arguably now, I think he's in the conversation. We'll talk about that too.
Officially entered that conversation.
Arguably one of the greatest of all time quarterbacks in Patrick Mahomes, throwing to arguably the greatest all-time tight end, Travis Kelce, and all you have to face up against is second stringer Oren Burks. I mean, I think it'd be stupid for them to not go and target Travis Kelce and Noah Gray and other guys like that, especially, and anyone in the slot as well. Anyone who's lined up in the slot. Mecole Hardman was doing a lot of slot work yesterday, which it's kind of funny how he didn't realize he caught the game-winning touchdown. It didn't even set in for him until after dudes were jumping all over. He's like, "We just won the Super Bowl. We just won the Super Bowl, dude."
That also kind of goes into the rule-playing factor of it. Like, did he even know the rules? Like, everyone was talking about towards the end of that game. Once the overtime's over, that's just a quarter. It's just a quarter of the overtime. So
Exactly.
I think that's definitely an indictment. But I'll say this to kind of bank off the last part we were just talking about. That overtime rule for the first game for the new overtime rules to be implemented is in the Super Bowl. The first time that it's had to happen. I don't know. I just think that's something worth talking about.
It's a little wild. It's a little wild to
Scripted.
see. That's where the question comes in: is what really is going on behind closed doors? I mean, a lot of it's weird. You got to connect some dots here. A lot of teams marketing teams this year were really pushing that narrative, like, pushing the joke, oh, here's the script, and then some commercials this
Even
year
the
too.
NFL commercials.
The NFL commercial with Jalen Ramsey is like, do I really have to come out here in high heels or something like that?
But then the no-handed catch.
Yeah,
It's like, can't I just catch it with my abs to DK Metcalf?
Yeah, the no-handed catch. It's, like they're making jokes about this, but like you mentioned, Nick, the first time we have to deal with the playoff overtime rules are in the game to end the season. This is determining, are the Chiefs going to turn into a dynasty? Is this finally Kyle Shanahan's time to win a ring? What happens in the future with these teams? And it really came down to a fifth quarter. And guys don't know what's going on.
On the winning and the losing side.
Exactly.
I've never seen that out of an organization of you not knowing the rules. I understand it's the first time, but they even explained it before the overtime even started, which is a little bit more concerning because you can read the scoreboard, you can hear, you clearly are capable of doing that.
And this now begs the question too, Michael. Let's go to you with this. Is there, obviously, the NFL reviews a lot of rules and regulations over every single season. We've seen it with the challenging just pass interference calls. We've seen it with adding a coach's challenge. If you win, you get it back, and you still have one inside the 2-minute warning now. I wonder now, what are the odds that the NFL kind of strays away from these already new overtime rules and just goes to straight up what college football does, where you start at the 25, score, each team gets a guaranteed chance, and then after a certain number of chances, it turns into one play. What are the odds the NFL looks into something like that? Because I think that's a little more efficient than this miscommunication going across. If it's the two teams in the Super Bowl, it has to be the entire league too, right?
Yep. Personally, I don't think that would be a terrible idea. I think it would be for the best. But at the same time, I just don't think it's going to happen. I just feel like they're going to want that separation from college football. I think they just like having the slightly different rules. And plus, I just felt like the game, it was fair. They both teams did go down. They did get opportunities to score. It just, the 49ers got a field goal and the Chiefs got a touchdown.
So now my question to you, Michael, is when it comes to this game, we're going to go around the room here before we move on to another prompt in this topic. Let's put aside the quarterbacks here. Let's ignore Mahomes. Who do you think was the most valuable player in the Super Bowl? Because there's a lot of options here, and there's a lot of room for debate.
I personally think it would have to be Travis Kelce, as much as I hate to say it. I was going to say probably Jawan Jennings for most of the game, but then it really just came down to like who really performed when it mattered most, like who was most important in that comeback. I would say Travis Kelce for sure.
Travis Kelce didn't do anything like at all yesterday. He was getting clamped pretty much the first half.
Yeah,
He had
exactly.
93
Thus sparks the debate.
He had 93 yards,
So
of course,
it's-
but first half he was completely a no-show.
Yeah.
And even the third quarter, and I would say Christian McCaffrey was easily
Yeah.
the MVP.
Yeah, I think probably, it would be Christian McCaffrey if it wasn't for them losing.
Yeah, if they won that game, they were either going to give it to Juan Jennings or Christian McCaffrey. They weren't
Yeah.
going to give it to Brock Purdy
I think it
whatsoever.
had to have gone to Jennings.
Yeah,
It had
for
to have
sure.
gone to Jennings. I
There's
mean,
no
this,
question.
played
this
a
was a
tremendous game about that.
career game for this guy. I mean, just looking at, receiving wise, Jennings 4 of 42 with a touchdown, and then 1 of 1 with the 21-yard bomb to Christian McCaffrey on that, what some people are trying to refer to as the San Fran special, a la Philly special in the Super Bowl when they won it.
Except Philly won.
Except Philly did win, so you really can't call it the special if you don't win. But I think it had to have been Jennings. But if you're going to talk about anyone on the Chiefs winning this, I mean, there's really no one that stands out. Like, Kelsey was 9 of 93.
Right.
Yeah.
Mecole Hardman, I guess. I mean, you have to give it to Mahomes. It only makes sense to give it to Mahomes. But if you're going to ignore Mahomes, I'd honestly go Mecole Hardman.
Either that or Chris Jones or something. 'cause he was
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
pressuring-
Chris
he was
Jones provided a lot of pressure,
pressuring-
too.
Pressuring Purdy the entire
Or
game.
how about Leo Chenal?
No.
3 tackles, 3 assists. So he had like 4.5 tackles, a couple for loss. He forced the fumble to open up the game. I mean, Wisconsin guy, Leo Chenal.
know.
There's really no bona fide. Like it's just Mahomes that has made this team so good.
I mean-
So now let's go to this side of the room here. Going forward, how long is this Chiefs dynasty? Like, first, can we call this a dynasty?
Yeah.
And secondly, how long does this dynasty last? Because Mahomes is under contract for what, another 8 years?
Correct. So this is the beginning, and 3 Super Bowls in, and we're still calling it the beginning is absurd. But just the level of coaching that Andy Reid's done and the level of skill that Patrick Mahomes has is just that large over the rest of the league. We are truly witnessing something special in our lifetimes with Mahomes as quarterback. And so long as he's the quarterback of the team, I mean, we saw like all throughout the seasons, everyone was like, are the Chiefs washed? I mean, they didn't have a true wide receiver one the entire season. Everyone thought this is their downfall. And then come playoff time, Patrick Mahomes looks like, I can't even compare
Prime
him to
Joe
Brady.
Montana, prime
Exactly.
Brady, prime, literally the top 5 best quarterbacks not named Mahomes of all time into one quarterback, and that's how he played.
It's essentially any time. I mean, he could have any team around him, as long as Patrick Mahomes, number 15, is the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're instantly a Super Bowl contender. I don't think we've seen truly an impact to the game since Brady. Besides Brady, we need to appreciate what we're watching in real time.
Nick, I want to add a question to yours. Is Andy Reid the greatest coach of all time now?
That is an awesome question. So if we're going off of, because when we talk about the GOAT, everyone gets so attracted to wins and losses, et cetera, et cetera. The GOAT's Belichick as of now, and that's going to stay there until Andy Reid surpasses him, which I think he will. I think just to kind of add into this whole conversation, Patrick Mahomes threw 1 interception the entire playoff run, and that was in the Super Bowl. They won the game. He now has 3 Super Bowls. He's 28 years old. The GOAT, quote unquote, right now of Tom Brady at 28 years old had, correct me if I'm wrong, he had 3 Super Bowls. He had went to 3 Super Bowls, but had no MVPs. Mahomes has 2 MVPs. He's 28. He's more mobile.
Significantly.
He doesn't have, and I will say this, he doesn't have the defenses that Brady did. Correct me if I'm wrong. Would you guys agree?
He did the past 2 years.
Brady
I
did have a
think
lot
so.
of guys like Rod Woodson,
Yeah, he
Ty
had-
Law. I mean,
Tom Brady had the better defense.
Vrabel, Bruschi.
His defenses the past 2 years have been
Oh, they've been
absurd.
Yeah, they've been. I mean, I wouldn't say absurd. They've
This
been
year they
good.
were. This year they were absurd. I would say so. The entire playoff run, they were very, very good. They held Tyreek Hill besides that one huge play he had. They held Josh Allen besides especially on that last drive. They held the MVP in Lamar Jackson.
They destroyed Lamar.
And they completely figure out Lamar. And then yesterday they held Christian McCaffrey to like 3.5 yards per carry. So I would say, and last year the only thing that they did really poorly was contain Jalen Hurts.
The Chiefs did have the second most sacks by any defense this year.
They were the best defense on third down.
In terms of allowing first downs, they were one of. How does this stat work? Because they're pretty low on this list, but it's first down percentage, and I think that has to do with how many first downs they allow.
Yes.
Exactly.
And the Chiefs they did not allow a lot of first downs.
Right.
They only allowed, on opponent drives, like 30% of them resulted in getting a first down or multiple first downs. In terms of touchdowns allowed, they only allowed the fourth least. Or I shouldn't say only. They were tied for the fourth least touchdowns allowed with the New York Jets. In terms of interceptions, though, their secondary was not very good.
Right, but
especially with
it all
ball
came down
hawking.
to their D-line and their linebackers.
Tied for third worst in the
They're so
league
young.
in total interceptions.
So young.
With defenses like the Commanders, the Panthers, and the Falcons.
Even then, though, Snead was a baller this year. He was snubbed for All-Pro, in my opinion.
In terms of rushing defenses, the Chiefs, total touchdowns allowed, they were, that's 3, 6. They were seventh, or tied for fourth numerically wise. They allowed 10 rushing touchdowns, and yards per carry, they were like top 10, one of the worst in terms of allowing yards per carry. So this defense this year really wasn't all that bad. It was pretty well balanced. Some areas that were great, like getting to the quarterback, Chris Jones, Leo Chenal, George Karlaftis, guys in that realm. But running defense just wasn't their strength. But in terms of, overall defensive outlook, they were a very well-balanced defense. I want to go back to you guys on this now, especially on the Andy Reid topic. Getting back into that, Andy Reid, he's shown a lot of success, not just with the Chiefs, but also with the Eagles in his past. He's had a lot of playoff success with the Eagles, never won a Super Bowl, made it to one in 2004, where I think they lost to the Patriots in that Super Bowl.
so.
And, outside of that, his time in Kansas City has been ridiculous. Has not recorded a single losing season in Kansas City. Lowest amount of wins in a season was when he went 9-7 in 2014 with Alex Smith at the helm. Ever since then, he has not had a season where he's lost 10 games, or where he's won less than 10 games. And now he has 3 Super Bowls to go with it, including another conference championship during the COVID season. So, 258 and 144 career record. Bill Belichick has about 63 more games. He's 302 and 165. Reid is missing him in win percentage by .006. Belichick, he's been around a lot longer. He also had a lot more prolonged success with Tom Brady. So there's a lot of variables here, but what do you guys think? Who's the better coach all time, Andy Reid or Belichick? Because Belichick's considered the consensus greatest of all time.
I would say currently still Belichick, only due to the fact that at this point it's just rings at this point, because Andy Reid in my mind is the best offensive coach I've ever witnessed, really, and Belichick is the best defensive coach I've ever witnessed. So it's kind of hard to say who's best right now, but you can only weigh that on rings in my opinion at this moment, because both coaches are pretty even in my opinion. It's just the longevity at that point.
Michael.
I would say statistically wise that Bill Belichick definitely is the greatest of all time for sure. But if we're talking about right now, currently, honestly, I would have to give the edge to Andy Reid, just because of how many wins gotten over the last 5 years with the Chiefs, and it seems more like players enjoy playing with Andy Reid more than they did with Belichick. He created a great system
That's
with
true.
them, but they almost feel like they had to be locked in at all times, and they didn't have any ability to have fun, whereas you definitely feel like you can have fun with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I also think that you can bully Andy Reid too, as we saw last night.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. That was
just very
That was
disappointing.
just to get a quick remark out about that. That was not okay.
that was disappointing.
He
That
should
was
have
not
been-
okay by
He should
Kelsey.
have been benched.
If
was
you're
If you
Bill
play football,
Belichick,
yeah.
Belichick doesn't play in the rest of the game.
If you played football or watched football your entire life, that if you're a player, you don't disrespect your coach, especially
Never.
if you're
Absolutely not.
getting paid all that money, and you're in the Super Bowl. He wants to win too. So obviously, if he makes a mistake, cool. But I don't think Travis Kelce should have been, privileged to stay in the game like that. If it was anyone else besides Mahomes, I'm sure they would get kicked out.
Speaking of Cancun here now, the Niners obviously, the last team to get sent home in the NFL. The Chiefs got to party in Vegas last night. But let's just go off-season outlook here. The first question here is, going into this off-season, what do the Niners really need to do, off-season wise? I mean, you're set to, let's see, you're losing quite a few guys going into next year. One of them possibly Deebo Samuel. Possibly Deebo you could be losing out on. So what are some things that this 49ers team needs to do in order to get back to the big game? Let's start on this side.
I am completely out of options for this team. Let's be honest too, because most of us in here are Packer fans, and this is not going to be a biased take, but the Packers never beat the Niners. The Niners are always the team that we thought the Packers were going to be in that regard to actually get to the dance. They have had a top 5 defense and a top 5 offense for, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been the last 5 years.
Under Shanahan.
Under
Six,
Shanahan.
yeah.
They have been absolutely fantastic in the regular season. And then they get to either the championship game or the Super Bowl and lose. And I don't know what that attests to, whether that be coaching, whether that be, defensive schemes. They've got all the talent in the world. But the only thing that I can think about that kind of catches your eye is your quarterback position. And I'm not saying this because I don't think Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. Brock Purdy's not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And I'm so sick of and tired of people saying that this guy is that guy. He is not a game manager, but I would put him a step above that. He is a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's not going to go win you a Super Bowl. You go back to Jimmy G. Obviously, Jimmy G got them to the dance. But it's the same case. You don't have a Patrick Mahomes on this team. You don't have a Tom Brady. You don't have these guys that are solidified and that can actually get you that win in that big game. Because Purdy, in all reality, kind of fell apart last night. He
played okay, I would
managed
say.
the game. I mean,
he played okay. It's just the fact that he missed those wide open throws that you would see the top tier quarterbacks make.
Exactly.
I understand Chris Jones and all those boys are on his neck pretty much, but if it's the biggest game of your life, and if you're one of those, if you're a supposed top 10, top 7 quarterback, as people say, you got to make those throws. I feel like if you
have to.
I can name like 6 other quarterbacks right now that I could fully say that they're completely better than Brock Purdy, and those guys probably would have made those throws.
Unbiasedly, Jay Love would have made those throws.
Oh man, don't even get me started.
The more you just sit and think, the more you realize that we were one Darnell Savage dropped pick 6 from not just being in this game, but maybe winning
I
this
mean, the
game.
Packers did beat them in the regular
Winning,
season.
that's my point.
Listen, proving the point that Brock Purdy, in my opinion, he got outplayed by Jordan Love, and I think he got outplayed by Jared Goff. And obviously he's going to get outplayed by Mahomes 10 out of 10.
That's
times,
the point. That's the point right there. What did we just say? He got outplayed. The only reason they were in the Super
Christian
Bowl
McCaffrey.
was because of everything else.
Christian McCaffrey was the sole reason they won against the Packers.
When you talk about Tom Brady being a system quarterback, there's a case you can make to say that Brock Purdy could be one of the best quarterbacks ever because of the system he's in.
Now you go back to that Green Bay game. Awful. He played horrible in my opinion.
Yeah, it was not.
And
Bailed
you
out.
go back to the Lions game. His defense saved his life.
Bailed
I
out.
genuinely saves him.
Well, and you had a tipped helmet catch.
Come on,
for
like
60 yards.
you're not winning the game off. He won the game off of luck, and
That's all
in my
it was.
opinion, I've heard so many people all year telling me this guy's MVP worthy. He's a top 10 quarterback. I genuinely do not see it. If he was on the Commanders or the Chargers, for instance, if he was playing under Brandon Staley, he's not putting up record-breaking numbers like Herbert was over the past few years.
I agree completely. And what you just said, you said Commanders. What if you put Sam Howell on the 49ers?
Oh man.
How much different would that look? Think about that.
I think they would have won that game by like 30, bro.
I'm not gonna lie.
lie.
I'm not gonna lie. Sam Howell on that team, he's a turnover machine a little bit,
Well,
but
yeah, due to the circumstances. But I mean, that guy's a gunslinger, and I think Sam Howell is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. And
All right,
agree.
we're
I don't
now we're
100%
just
agree
getting
with that.
carried away.
No,
Look,
no.
here's the so I believe in Brock Purdy. Okay, is what you said earlier.
so you have no questions left.
No, trust me, he is the perfect quarterback for a Kyle Shanahan run system. He does not make very many mistakes. He's the perfect quarterback for that system. I really think the Niners played about as great as the game as they could yesterday.
defense did.
I don't
The
think
defense sure did.
I don't think it's a testament to what the Niners need to do this offseason. I think it's just that's how great Kansas City is. The Niners had the perfect team throughout the regular season and the NFL. They were the consensus favorite to win the Super Bowl, and really, they have the perfectly constructed roster, the perfectly
Exactly.
constructed system.
So why are you not winning?
So why aren't you winning? That's the
because
question.
Patrick Mahomes has started his career off
have-
better than any other quarterback we've ever
Agreed.
seen. It is a testament to the Chiefs' greatness, and Mahomes at this pace will go down as the greatest quarterback in NFL history, and there is simply no beating him when it comes January, February.
I
But-
do like the Mahomes take. That's why I'm
Okay,
giving the claps.
I
like
completely
the
agree
Mahomes
with
take.
everything you said about Mahomes. He's on pace to be the greatest ever. If he gets a three-peat, he's in that conversation, okay? But you just said everything we're making a point to. He has the better team. If he's a top 10 quarterback, if he's a top 7 quarterback, you win that game with the better team. He has the best overall team in the entire National Football League.
I don't care. In my personal opinion, I don't care who's quarterback for the Niners yesterday, and there was no one beating Patrick Mahomes.
I disagree.
Well,
fully.
Tom Brady did it.
I completely
Brady
disagree
did do it.
fully. And Tom Brady didn't even have that. He didn't have the. I don't think he had the. The Niners had a better team than Tom Brady had on Tampa Bay, in my
Agreed.
opinion.
And is that what
Correct.
we need? Do we need Tom Brady to come play for the San Francisco 49ers next
They
year?
almost tried to get him. They tried to get him.
There were
Is that what we
rumblings.
need?
It was between
They tried to get
it was
him.
between them, the Raiders, and the Buccaneers
Yeah.
right away. And then there were talks that because now he's partial owner of or Vegas. There were talks that he was going to be a player owner, a la Curly Lambeau. Like,
Yeah.
Like, come on.
there was rumblings about
he
that.
sees a
Rumblings
threat to
about
his
San
legacy
Fran.
with Mahomes up and coming. He needs to come back and remind the world.
And
already
it'll
did.
always have the fact that he beat Mahomes when it mattered most. in the
Even
Super Bowl.
Mahomes doesn't. He doesn't even know how to think about it because he lost to him.
And I would be so okay with that. I'll be honest. I'm kind of on the train now,
It's-
and I'll say it: the quote unquote hater train. When someone's starting to get really, really good, you don't want to see him win. It's the same thing with the Warriors, how they were when their dynasty happened. The same thing when we had Tom Brady in his prime when he was with New England. Nobody wanted them to win those Super Bowls.
The
Yeah.
Chiefs went into the Super Bowl probably the most hated team
Oh yeah, this
Yeah.
year
in,
for
in
sure.
a very long time. I think
Easily.
this Chiefs team, just like you can throw Taylor Swift in there for the reason why, obviously. But even like the Patriots dynasty, I never recall seeing this level of hate for a team like that. And over all that adversity, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're a great team, but in terms of just the media and just like, I mean, on TikTok even, you see all those save us Brock Purdy, save us Lamar Jackson. They went into this game
with like the Iron Man intro
Yeah,
song.
and they just went into this
It's
game.
Brock Purdy.
like they knew they were going to win. It's just I firmly just Patrick Mahomes, 6 AFC championships, 4 Super Bowl appearances. He's only 28 years old. As long as Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are together, we're witnessing the greatest run of a franchise maybe ever.
I wanna kick this one back to what the Niners have to do this offseason because I have a really hot take.
Let me hear it.
They get a,
Well, so
I don't
let's
know.
let's talk about just the player personnel first because next season they only have about going into this offseason they only have about $570,000 in cap space according to Spotrac.
Yep.
When it comes to guys that need to re-up on contracts, Nick Bosa is worth about $28 million right now. Brandon Ayuk 23, Tre'Davious Ward 15, Chase Young 13. Your current free agents this upcoming season, you do have 3 receivers, mostly depth, including Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings is a free agent.
Come to Green Bay.
I wouldn't mind that.
Jump ball
Another
target.
Jennings and Green Bay.
I would not mind that. Both backup quarterbacks are gone, so backup is going to need to be addressed, especially if because Purdy had some injury issues last year. That's going to need to be addressed. Do they just bring back Sam Darnold? Do they go elsewhere, like Jameis Winston, maybe, if
I like
Winston
it.
wants to get
I
out of
like
there?
it.
Couple linebackers are free agents, Orton Burks being one of them as an unrestricted free agent, and Greenlaw being sidelined for what could be the season. You might have to want to bring him back. He's projected $2.5 million. Other than that, Javon Kinlaw is also a free agent this offseason.
That's tough loss.
Tayshaun Gibson will be gone. He's worth about $3 million. Chase Young, market value estimates anywhere between $9 and like $14 million a season.
And he's gonna
Chargers
ask
get
for
him.
more.
He's going to definitely get that and more.
will
Logan
get it back
Ryan.
for sure.
Logan Ryan is also, I mean, he's 33 years old, but he's off the books too. So going into next year, there's a positional need at wide receiver, especially for depth, and going forward too, because Brandon Ayuk's contract is expiring soon. Deebo Samuel's contract is expiring soon. Like, there's going to be some need. George Kittle's not going to be there forever either.
Better try
and
to
they
shoot
don't
for
have
Mike
a lot
Evans.
of room.
Better shoot for Mike Evans.
They don't have a lot of room.
Top
You
free
got to
agent
figure it out.
by
The
far.
problem is they went all in. They were all in. There was
did-
nothing more they could
exactly.
have done this year.
They
Randy
did
Gregory
exactly-
also set to be a free agent.
They did exactly what the Rams did, but failed. And
Yeah.
also one thing, I want to start giving this team the Cowboys treatment a little bit because they're just a little. They're like the Cowboys, just a little bit. You know,
They did a
They're
little
just
bit
get a game
further.
or two further. Yeah, exactly.
they do it every year. So I'm starting to just lose a lot of hope in this team, and I'm just gonna put that out there. You're gonna have to start giving them the same hate.
Well, I agree. And I think there's 3 teams that do the same thing.
Yep.
And what are they? I think you guys can answer this for me.
The Bills.
No. And they're all in the NFC.
Eagles
Cowboys.
already won one.
Cowboys is one.
definitely one of them.
Jeez, just perennial disappointment. I think the
Cowboys,
Green Bay
Niners,
Packers
The
have to
Green
be
Bay
there.
Packers are
Packers and
definitely
the
on
San
that
Francisco
list.
49ers. Tell me
And they're all one and the same. It's a love triangle
It's a
there.
love
No pun
triangle
intended. It's a
of-
love
Pun intended.
triangle.
of L's.
Packers always beat the Cowboys.
Yep.
Cowboys
always-
typically beat the Niners. Niners always beat the Packers. Like, it's just a
And
tale
then
as old as
whoever makes
time.
it out.
And whoever makes it out will just lose.
Loses the
So,
Super Bowl.
It's like
I think,
whatever.
I think
Here's
the
my-
Niners go get either T. Higgins or Mike Evans. I think
T. Higgins would be a great
Ooh.
Higgins would be a great.
But then you got to move on from one of Ayuk or Samuel. You kind of have to at that point
Let
because you
Debo
can't
walk.
keep all 3 of them when they're all worth so much
Let
because they're
Debo
very
walk.
talented receivers.
Let Debo walk.
I
True.
disagree there. I think
Ooh.
I would rather keep Debo.
Debo's got a lot of injury
I don't know.
issues though. He's
I
very
don't know.
prone.
Debo,
I love Debo.
Debo
I love
fully
Debo.
healthy, in my opinion, is
But the question is he going to stay fully healthy?
Or will
He's
he
a
be
rack
as
wide
good on a
receiver.
different team?
They need a go getter
Different
up
system.
top. He's a rack wide receiver. That's a fact. I love Debo, but him right now, he's injury prone right now, and you know Ayuk's he's been on a tear recently. So, I mean, I don't know. I would let him walk personally. He costs the most, so
You guys aren't ready for this one.
Oh God.
steaming hot take.
Odell
loading.
Beckham Jr.
Kyle Shanahan should not be the head coach of that team anymore.
I agree.
That's not a hot
Just
take.
false.
Oh, really?
I'm
Go
so
get Belichick.
sorry.
See what
Brendan,
happens.
why?
I've already said it. He is not the problem here. The Niners assembled the best regular season roster in a very, very long time in the NFL. His offense is a work of genius. He can get you there. I don't think just a Super Bowl loss and not like quote unquote not showing up for the big game.
He's lost 3.
Is
3.
reason enough. I don't think it's reason enough. But yeah, but you got to understand who he's gone against those 3 games. Patrick Mahomes twice and Tom Brady, and each of those games came down to the end of the game.
And I
mean,
hear you.
if you get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo's overthrow and the 28-3 in just the fourth quarter,
But that's
he's
that's
2-1.
That's if though. He's
Name
not,
a coach that can make that can win there. He is
Bill
a
Belichick.
fantastic.
Belichick.
Yeah,
Go get
okay.
Belichick.
Yeah.
He's open.
Without Brady, what has
He
he
is
done in his
there.
career? I mean,
Give
look
him
at
a
the late
step after like
90s.
that.
He made Mac
The 90s
Jones look
with
like
the
a feasible
Browns.
quarterback.
Give him that roster. See what he does.
I'm sorry.
No, I
Kyle
hear you
Shanahan
on
is
every
an offensive
aspect.
genius.
Every aspect that you talk about, you're 100% correct. But then we can't say the problem with that team not winning is running into Mahomes. That's not the problem with that team. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's
I
an
disagree
internal
with
problem.
you.
There's something that's happening, whether that be in the game, coaching staff, player personnel. Something is happening that they can't finish. Something's happening because it wasn't just Mahomes that beat them when they didn't make it to.
I'll give him a
playoffs, too,
pass
you
for
know?
last year because obviously they didn't really have a backup to
Yeah.
play in the game. But
I'm going to kind of kick this to the camera a little bit. I'm trying to fit it in the screen as much as I can. But these are 4 games. I just pulled this up on my X account because I liked the picture. These are 4 games where Kyle Shanahan has been the offensive coordinator or the head coach in a playoff game with a lot on the line where they've blown a double-digit lead. Exhibit A, 28-3.
you know what happens when Kyle Shanahan goes down? He doesn't win. He will not come back.
Exhibit B, Niners against the Rams, NFC Championship
They
right
should've
before
won
the
that
LA
game.
Super Bowl.
100%
They
should've won that
game. They were up 17-7.
Debo
in
was
the
having a
third,
crazy game
In the
that
fourth
game.
quarter with 13:34 left. This picture, the 28-3, was taken with 2:10 left in the third. We all know how that ended up being. The Niners ended up losing this one. I want to say it was like 20-17. 20-10 against the Chiefs the first time around in the Super Bowl with 11:57 to go. And then lastly, this Johnson, 10-0 at the end of the first half.
What even is a 10-point lead?
It's a 10-point lead in a playoff game or the
With
Super
the best
Bowl.
team in the
He
league.
did come with the receipts. You got to retaliate here.
With the
What's to take
best team
back?
in the league.
It's
have to
starting
keep
to
that lead.
I've made
appear
my case.
that Kyle Shanahan is the problem. This is the same stuff that we've talked about in basketball for so long now.
If he's not
where
the problem,
head
then what
coaches
is?
can get you so
Yeah.
close and then they get fired.
Yes.
Doc Rivers is a perfect example of that. Mike Budenholzer is a perfect example of
Exactly.
that. He got bailed out on that 2021 finals run.
He did.
It's a constant search for these coaches who can get you over the hump. And Kyle Shanahan has not proven that he can be that
his
for
best-
any team.
His best chance of winning the Super Bowl, in my opinion, was that year against the Rams when they were going to go against the Bengals. I think that was their best chance of winning because I genuinely believe that they would have won that Super Bowl.
I'd argue it was this year.
I
I'd argue it was
agree.
this
Yeah,
year.
I-
The Bengals were hot, and then
Right.
they kind of collapsed. You couldn't really predict that collapse.
I mean,
No,
if
the
Odell doesn't
collapse
get
was
hurt,
the offensive line, brother. I mean, there was no way they were going to.
there's no way they're going to there's no way they're going to guard that 49ers defensive line. There's no way. I just think that was their best chance personally. But the Rams just came up because they went all in and actually got it done.
Quick side note though, that 28-3 lead that was blown.
Ridiculous.
You know who was on that training staff?
Who's on that? Was that Matt LaFleur?
Matthew LaFleur.
There it is.
Can you, dude? That's not a good feeling.
No, it's really
It's
not.
not a good feeling.
But I think what is a good feeling, though, especially if we're going to lean this towards the Packers now here, is what makes me feel good about that is that this team was expected to go absolutely nowhere, and they went toe-to-toe with the team that took arguably the greatest quarterback head coach duo of all time to the last minutes of overtime with the lead to then lose in the Super Bowl. That makes me comfortable. And we were leading most of that divisional game
They also beat that team
in the regular
won.
season.
And I have
In the
full
regular
confidence
season?
that the Packers would have beat the Lions. I have full confidence in that.
There was me too. There was a graphic today that was put out by NFL on Fox podcast of the early top 10, like the way too early top 10 rankings.
They got Packers at 10, right?
Packers at 4.
4.
Ooh, I like that.
Whoa.
It went Chiefs,
agree.
Niners, Lions, Packers.
Lions. I don't like the Lions up there.
Lions are a one-season wonder.
I care to
agree with you
disagree.
on that. Because, dude, that defense, am I wrong? This defense that they have?
I love what
is
Campbell's
so
done.
fraudulent.
I love how he's revitalized, but come on, I mean, this season, look at who they had to play. They played Tampa Bay in the divisional round. I'm drawing a blank who they played in the wild card, but I mean, they've
They
had a
played,
very.
It wasn't Philadelphia. It
No,
was
Tampa played Philly.
the Rams. It was the Rams. It was
I mean,
Matthew Stafford's
yeah,
homecoming.
they played Staff.
That was a tight game.
That was a good
That was a
game.
great game, but I think the Lions are one and done. I think they're going to be a
It's the
perennial
defense.
wild card defense, divisional round team.
So, really quick to wrap up this topic so we can get another one in before final thoughts. This was the NFL on Fox podcast, way too early top 10 for 2024. We'll deliberate over it really quick and then move on to another topic. Number 10 was the LA Rams. Interesting pick in my opinion,
Yeah,
but
I
if
don't
they can really buff up the defense, especially, they're another good system with Sean McVay where you can plug and chug with any quarterback.
That's
true.
Whether it's Stafford there or someone else like Sam Howell, if the Commanders decide to draft Drake May and then they want to move on from Howell because he's a very good quarterback, they can get some good
I
value.
want to see how I'll go somewhere good. I
That
love him.
would make him a little
Brett Favre
dangerous in my
arc.
Put him on the
eyes.
Dolphins.
It would be the Brett Favre arc on steroids because he was already very good with his first team that drafted him. Favre just played like 2 games with the Falcons
Yeah.
and
Put
wasn't
him on the
good.
Dolphins. See what happens.
Number 9, the Browns. I like that there.
defense.
I think Watson's going to have a turnaround. He has to. He's
They
getting
need to
paid
beef
too
up
much
that
and
O-line.
he's doing too
He's
much in the
making way too
offseason.
much money to not.
Exactly. He has to turn around.
Yeah, he's got to get in the winner mindset.
It's the Cowboys. It's the Cowboys.
No, I'm sorry. Let me chime in real quick. This is going to be really quick. I know we're on a time crunch. The Dallas Cowboys should not be in any sort of projection.
They have to. That team is too good.
To be top 10 for any reason.
They're in the
There's
easiest
so
division.
much talent
They're in
on
the
that
easiest
roster,
division.
and it
That's
is the
fine.
easiest
That's a
division.
conversation
They-
for a
they can
different
have
day,
all their
'cause I have
talent.
strong feelings on that. So
Oh,
we will
God.
get that
Number
next
7
week.
is the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay.
I really
Keep
don't
the same
know.
energy for them.
I really don't know.
They're in the same. They're in the same division as the Cowboys.
They're in the same division.
They're in the
yes.
easiest division.
But I don't know if you can give them a step up simply because the Cowboys won the division this year. And
They did win a Super
Nick
Bowl.
Sirianni had a generational collapse at head
They
coach
won a
going into the
Super
end of the year.
Bowl with. Was Sirianni? I don't think Sirianni was that coach.
No.
So
It was
That was,
it was what's-
Peterson.
Yeah,
Doug
Peterson.
It was Doug Peterson
So
with the Jags, who are not on this list, unfortunately.
Right.
I think they'd be a close 11, right behind the Rams
Yeah,
in my
I can see
eyes.
that.
Especially if they have a good offseason. But like currently, right now, I'd put them like top 15, but certainly not top 10. Number 6, Buffalo.
perennial.
Perennial top 10. That
Gotta
just
be.
makes sense.
Top
Number
3
5
quarterback.
is Baltimore.
That's a
Gotta be.
little low.
That is very low.
It is.
If they
but
pick up one more guy on offense, hey,
Yeah.
it could happen. Get a top 2 wide receiver on the free agency.
Number 4 from the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, it's the Green Bay Packers.
I love it.
I agree. I fully agree with this. I think the 3 teams above them are still better than them, but I think the Packers would beat the other 6 teams on this
Go
list.
get Mike
agree.
Evans, man. Go get Mike Evans. I'm telling you.
Or bring back Devontae. There's rumblings that he's gone.
he
there's
wants to go
rumblings.
to New York.
Vegas.
That's-
You know where he wants to go.
I'll say this: I
You know
don't
where he wants
care
to go.
where he goes. He needs to leave Vegas.
He should have went.
Agreed.
He should have went to Kansas City, but that's just my opinion.
Well, Valdez Scantling's got 2 rings.
That's
And
crazy.
he does. Miko
Packers
Hardman has 2
legend.
rings. Come on. Number 3, Detroit. Their defense is such a liability that you
wonder.
could argue that Green Bay is above them, but
Significantly.
tough.
I can name 3
it is
other
very,
teams
it's very
that are above
tough.
them.
I don't put Baltimore. I would flip Baltimore in Detroit. That's
agree.
where I would. Be.
Ooh,
I agree.
I would put Baltimore.
that
3.
is a
Lions are
take,
good though.
and it's a take that I can agree with.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Number 2, San Fran. Number 1, Kansas City.
Okay.
I mean, that just makes sense. You know, the teams that were just in the Super Bowl. Not much is changing for either side.
Yet.
Outside of Chase Young is probably the biggest loss on that Niners defense,
Watch him go
and
to the
Dre
Chiefs.
Greenlaw now.
Watch Chase Young go to the Chiefs.
That would be wild.
calling it.
Let's go to one more topic today for about 5 minutes before we move on to final thoughts. The comeback queens in women's basketball. Women's basketball team decided to give lacrosse some breathing room during Saturday's matchup, but it just wasn't enough for the Eagles as they fell to the Warhawks 73-67 in an insane thriller of a basketball game where forward Aaliyah Grundall set yet another school record with 39 points in a single game. It's the most ever scored in one game in women's program history.
Tough.
It's also Whitewater's 9th win in their last 11 matchups with the Eagles. Just real quick notes about the game. I mean, that was
Tough.
tough. Aaliyah Clutchdall, man. Like, let me tell you, that was. I want to say there was no other, maybe one other person on the women's team this week or this past Saturday that had more than that was in double-digit points outside of Grundall.
No, there's no. I mean, London
The
Alexander
second
was
leading
close.
scorer at 9.
She had 9.
London was close, but
Which
They had no bench production though. That's for sure.
there was definitely none, and it was tough watching this game, especially early on, especially in the third quarter. The third quarter was rough.
without
where we're-
Corallo, they look a little lost sometimes.
They do.
They really do.
It's concerning. And I talked with Coach Corallo ahead of the game on Saturday, and I asked, what's the status on Casey Corallo's injury. It was a high ankle sprain.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of coming back from that.
She. I looked at her like I said last week. I looked at her. I looked down at her leg, and I was like,
But this week, though, this past Saturday, she was a full participant in the shoot-around pregame, and then in pregame warm-ups, she was sidelined. In the 90-minute warm-ups,
maybe
she
they're
was
saving
sidelined.
her. Maybe they're saving her. I would.
That's my thoughts.
I
Coming
would
back
say
for a
that.
postseason push.
Michael,
That's what it sounds
Michael, let's go to you. You haven't made some noise in a little bit. 987 fans in attendance at the Catchell Gymnasium. Going into this postseason run, because there's 2 conference games against Platteville and against River Falls that should be wins. River Falls lost to Oshkosh in double digits this past week, which I want to say locked up Oshkosh's #1 spot in the WEAC tournament.
Yeah.
And then they play Platteville this coming Wednesday. There was a lot of bench action this week for the Warhawks, including Renee Rittmeyer, 15 minutes, Cameron Neese for 15, Sylvia Fox with 12. We really haven't seen Sylvia play a lot this season. Logan Lowry and Mallory Olafson only played for 5 minutes. No injury designation, no nothing. Only played for 5 minutes in this game. Michael, does this team need to rely a lot on, spreading out the minutes like this? Or once Corallo comes back, is it just keep your best 5 out there as long as possible?
Yeah, I think that they should, honestly. Man, I really want them to get the bench production. I feel like it could help them be more reliable. But again, going in, they have, who is it? Platteville and River Falls up against in the next 2 games.
Yes.
And they are towards the bottom of the division, or at least River Falls, like middle of the pack. So again, they should win both of those games. Is Corallo supposed to be back for the playoffs? Is that what you're saying?
That's what we're
That's the goal.
assuming at
Hope
this
so.
point. That's
One can
probably the
hope.
goal. I mean, going these conference games, they are basically washes right now.
Right.
So going in like these last 2, you really don't want to force her back.
Right.
You want to make sure that Corrall's 100% before she gets back in. Second leading scorer on the team with 14.2 per game.
Yeah.
Obviously behind Grundall, who's been popping off lately. Talk about the leadership that Grundall has really taken. It's kind of a similar situation to last year, where Grundall went down in the conference tournament and then missed the NCAA tournament for the few games they were alive.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of have to have that 1-2 punch in there, especially for this being Grandal's last ride with the team, using her last year of eligibility.
Right.
She's a graduate student. She's not coming back next year to play, at least. Coaching could be a different story. But 23-10, the team outscored La Crosse in the fourth quarter.
Huge.
Are they going to need, Michael, let's go back to you again on this one, and then feel free to chime in, you three. Is it bad that this team feels like they need to rely on big fourth quarter performances, or is this just the Warhawk way? Is this how they're going to play the rest of the way? And is it feasible? Is this something that they should be doing? You know, let the other teams get some comfort room and then kind of come back like an assassin and take them out.
Well, I don't think you can rely on that for too long, even though one thing I could mention is, not to get too far off topic, but again, whenever the men's side, whenever they won and they were up by 20 points, they ultimately fell short. So I think it is possible for this women's team too. But again, I just wouldn't want to rely on that. You want to be able to get on a big lead, just give yourself some comfort. But
Yeah, when you're pushing for a chip like they've been trying to do the past few years, I don't think, you know, relying on the fourth quarter, you want to be consistent all game, and you want to be dominant, you want to be very precise with your shots, you want to make the smart plays and not take dumb shots. But I want to give like a very special shout out. Bree McCurdy, her defense has been like absurd.
Tough.
I don't know. Like her stats don't show it.
Just
but I've
sticking
noticed,
to, especially this week,
it's unreal.
sticking to Paige Schumann, who Schumann was out there for 38
It was
minutes.
crazy.
Held Schumann to just 6 shots.
It was unreal.
And Schumann's one of the leading scorers on this team.
She was face guarding, like smothering them, like not even letting them get by. And her stats don't show it. Like, yes, it says that she only had 1 steal, but I promise you, if you watch her play, it's like she has like 6 steals and like 3 blocks. It just, that's the type of defense she plays.
Like
It's
a
amazing.
turnovers responsible for metric.
Exactly. Yeah, it's amazing. She plays amazing. I just wanted to give a special shout out to her. She's great.
I will say this though, real quick before we wrap up. I think to off what you were saying, I think if they try to rely on being a quote unquote fourth quarter team, I don't think that's going to last. You can be a second half team,
Oh yeah, fourth quarter team.
but they haven't even been a second half team. It's been fourth quarter or nothing.
Well,
It's
the
not
third and fourth
sustainable.
quarter were night and day.
Yeah.
Entirely. The team just looked flustered. La Crosse had all the momentum in the third quarter. You know, they won the quarter by 5, but it really felt like, you know, this team was just not there. And it was kind of feeding off of the last game this year where La Crosse kind of took it to them in La Crosse and then carried that same energy over. They were leading at the end of the first 3 quarters, and then the insane 23-10 fourth quarter comeback is
16
kind of what led
points from
this team.
Gundel in the fourth.
I think that this was this is definitely a confidence booster for this team that they can handle anybody in any situation. But I would sure as heck hope that they don't rely
It's not
on that.
sustainable.
It's definitely not sustainable, especially when you get up there in the tournament.
You guys think that they can win in the first round and wait for her to come back from injury? Because I think that's what it's going to take. They're going to have to win.
It's
I
tough.
don't want to. I don't even want to think about
It's
that.
gonna
tough.
have
They
to, I
should,
think.
being a top 10 team, even if they don't win the conference tournament, they should still get an auto bid into the
Oh,
tournament.
I
They'll still
agree.
get in. Whether or not we host, definitely won't unless we win the tournament.
Yeah.
And even then, if it's close and other teams win their tournaments by large margins, we're
Yeah.
probably not hosting in a regional.
Yeah.
But especially if we do host, I think there's a case to be made where you can let Casey sit for a little bit.
Can you?
But that's the question. It's
don't know.
tough. It's win or go home. It's literally,
saying, I don't-
it's quite literally win or go home. Speaking of going home, it's time for final thoughts. Let's kick it to Michael first. Michael, final thoughts on the day.
does that have to be related or not?
Anything.
Okay.
Just general final thoughts.
Well, just briefly with that trade deadline and the Mavericks picking up PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, I think that they're genuinely one of the top contenders now. I think they're going to make a big push towards the Western Conference Finals.
Nazir.
Free agency is almost here for NFL. I know the Super Bowl just wrapped up yesterday. We got to take a little breather, but Chargers go for Chase Young. Get rid of Khalil Mack or Bosa. I prefer Bosa. Get rid of him.
Whoa.
And get someone that is not injury prone. Just get somebody and let's win a Super Bowl in the next few years.
Stay hot with that Joey Bosa take right there.
Yeah.
Brendan, final thoughts on the day.
Big game for the Bucks tonight. Nuggets take on the Bucks in Milwaukee. Even without Chris Middleton, this is a statement Doc Rivers game. Bucks by 10.
Bucks by 10 tonight. That's a hot take.
Bucks by 10 with the Jokic jersey.
I love Jokic. This is the Bucks night.
Wow, this is
Hot take.
what a turn of events here.
I'm just gonna
How the turntables, to quote Steve Carell.
I'm gonna kind of go off the same thing. I need the Bucks to win tonight, and I need the Clippers to take down the 1 seed Timberwolves to secure the 1 seed in the West. Clippers 2024.
That would
NBA
certainly be something here. 91.7 The Edge, WSEW Whitewater. Once again, you can catch us next week. You can catch us tomorrow, 5 o'clock. Wednesday, Thursday, also 5 o'clock. I'll be back on next week to host Monday. As for my final thoughts, today would be a wonderful day for the Brewers to go get Blake Snell on a 2-year, $60 million deal with a buyout off of this season and mutual option for a 3rd year in 2026. That is all from us today. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to kick it back to the music here on 91.7 The Edge.